Origin of Evil is the prequel to the 2014 film Ouija, and it's about this mother who lives with her two daughters, and she's trying to make a living putting out fake seances. Basically, people come by, and she tries to make them feel like they're talking to a dead relative or a friend to give them a sense of closure. Technically lying, but kind of a good thing. And when she brings home a Ouija board to try to help out with her seances, her youngest daughter, Doris, starts fiddling with it to try to talk to her dad, and then she gets in contact with a couple other spirits, and then things get a little bit terrible for them. Now yes, the 2014 Ouija film, it sucked. It sucked hard too. That is one of the worst horror films, ever, I think. So obviously when the studio came out and said, hey, because the box office was so good, we're gonna make another one. Obviously, the natural response was, no, don't do it. I get that. However, if you actually did some research, you would have found out that this movie was going to be directed by Mike Flanagan, who directed such great horror films as Oculus and Hush, a film that came out this year. And as soon as I found out that Mike Flanagan was on board, I was hooked. I actually wanted to see what he'd do with this film. Even he came out and said, yeah, that first movie was kinda terrible, but this one, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I'm not that kind of close-minded guy who just looks at it and goes, oh, it's still being produced by Michael Bay and Jason Blum of Blumhouse Pictures. They put out some of the worst horror films ever. Oh, this movie's gonna suck. I don't care if there's a good director behind it. I don't care if even the trailer's that good. I'm gonna hate this movie because it's a Ouija movie. Oh, it's a prequel to... I'm gonna hate this movie. Everything about this movie I'm gonna hate. I don't even need to see the movie. I'm just gonna hate it. I'm not that kind of guy at all. I'm actually that kind of guy who likes doing things called going into a movie with an open mind. And I gotta say, Ouija Origin of Evil, this movie was absolutely 100% what the first Ouija film from 2 years ago should have been. You know what? I'm not even gonna regard that movie anymore. Ouija Origin of Evil, this is the definitive Ouija film. There's no need to bring that up anymore, because we have this one. Mike Flanagan has graced us with yet another great horror film in 2016. Say whatever you want. Sure, some movies have been disappointing, some have outright sucked, but horror this year has been spectacular. Hush, Lights Out, The Conjuring 2, Don't Breathe, and now this one. In fact, I'm actually having a big debate with myself if I like this more, or The Conjuring 2, or Don't Breathe. Seriously, I don't know which is my favorite horror film of the year. Those three are all terrific, because as I've been saying for so long, Mike Flanagan knows what he's doing in the horror genre. He actually gives you real scares. There's 2 false jumps in this movie, but those 2 are literally the first 2 of the movie. Everything other than those 2 scares is legitimate terror. In fact, there are a couple moments where Mike Flanagan just lets a scary image be there. No sound effect required. There's one shot where you might not even pick up that there is something scary there. In fact, I saw it, and I kinda ooh. And my sister who saw it with me was like, wait, was something scary there? That's how good Mike Flanagan is, because he's not putting in an obvious loud noise now you have to be scared because I inserted a loud sound effect that caught you off guard. Mike Flanagan knows what actually scares people. Actually scary things. So he did a fantastic job directing this movie. If I had to nitpick, and this might be a huge one, but it kind of took me out of the movie. There are 2 shots that were supposed to come off as scary, but I just kind of thought it looked a little cheesy, but that's just me. Not only did Mike Flanagan do a good job of directing the horror aspects of this movie, but he also did a good job making it feel like this was ripped right out of the 70s. Not just because of the Universal logo or the fact that the title card of this movie looks really old, but really awesome. But there's also a couple times where if you look up in the right corner, you'll see the change the reel symbol for the projectionists. And it was just really exciting for me every once in a while when it would pop up and I'd be like, oh, there it is! Obviously, I can't praise this film enough due to how it was directed and how the scares actually got under my skin, but this movie actually puts its characters first. It is focused on having great terror, but the characters come first. The family you actually do get invested with because not only are they acted very well, but their story actually is interesting. You actually do feel for this family. Even before when the Ouija board comes into their house, you actually are feeling for their problems in life, and you still continue to feel for their problems when this Ouija board starts to affect them. Elizabeth Razor, who played the mother in this movie, I thought she did a really good job in this film. The oldest daughter, played by Annalise Basso, I thought she did a very good job, and she was also in the other Mike Flanagan Flanagan film about the scary mirror Oculus so good that she's in more movies. But obviously the best performance in this movie was Lulu Wilson playing Doris, the youngest daughter in this film. Now this is a hard thing to do, having a child in your movie who's kind of possessed and saying some messed up stuff that is supposed to come off as scary. Sometimes it might be really stupid or really cheesy sounding, but Lulu Wilson actually pulls it off. Especially the one scene where she's talking to her older sister's boyfriend about you know what. If you've seen the trailer, that scene actually was pretty creepy, and she's creepy in the entire film, and I was a little worried coming home that maybe she'd be in my room, like in my closet, ready to jump out at me. I was a little nervous to turn off the lights. I mean, not entirely nervous because I'm a man. And even Henry Thomas, who plays Elliot in E.T., showed up as a priest in this movie, and he actually did a very good job. There's one scene where in particular where I think he stood out. And another thing I really like about this movie, the characters aren't stupid. They made decisions in this movie that seemed like the best idea for them in the situation that they were in. In fact, there's one scene where they joke about a certain horror cliche that maybe you were expecting to happen, but instead of doing that, they decided to throw in a clever joke about it, and I was dying with laughter at that. I was like, thank you, Mike Flanagan, for making fun of that stupid horror cliche. This is why I love you, man. I'm sure there are some people out there who will not like this movie because it seems familiar to them, and there are definitely a couple things that you've seen before in other horror films, but as I've said a couple other times in other reviews, it's how it's portrayed in this movie. How is it executed by the director and through this movie? And Mike Flanagan did an excellent job directing this film. Guys, seriously, don't be a closed-minded jerk and just say, I'm gonna hate this movie, why should I see it anyways? Please, give this movie a chance. Please let this movie be #1 at the box office. I'm really rooting for this thing. I'm gonna give Ouija Origin of Evil an A. You could connect with the characters easily, the performances were all great, and the direction by Mike Flanagan was just superb. As I mentioned, there's just 2 shots that looked a little cheesy to me and took me out of it a little bit. And yes, one of those shots is the ending. If you've seen other Blumhouse movies, usually they put something really stupid as their ending. But really, it didn't bother me a whole lot. Ouija Origin of Evil is a film you definitely should see. Since it's Halloween too, please go see this movie. It deserves your time and money. Unlike that first film. But what did you think of Ouija Origin of Evil? Leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.